Hello, and welcome to the 10-minute Bible lesson. We appreciate you tuning in today. We've been doing an awful lot of lessons from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. In fact, I think today is number 26, and then we have maybe one more, and that'll close out the teachings of Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. But today we're going to be looking at something that Jesus said that had very stern words in it. In fact, when I read them, it kind of scares me. So let's go ahead and read and see what he said. It's in Matthew chapter 7, verse 21. He says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven." See, that's a pretty stern statement, isn't it? And it makes me think of that day. What do I mean by that day? Well, Paul spoke about it in Acts chapter 17, verse 31. He mentions that day, and here's what he says about it. "Because he has appointed a day on which he will judge the world." That day. "And he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has ordained." Now think about that. God has appointed a day. He's going to judge the world, and he'll do it in righteousness, and he's already set aside a person to do that. Who could it be? Well, it goes on and says, "He has given assurance of this to all by raising him from the dead." He had to be talking about Jesus. So here he's talking about something really stern and serious. That is to say, the day of judgment, the day of reckoning. And so Jesus plainly says in this verse that not everyone is going to be able to enter into heaven. Now, I would just say you probably would agree with that, and that's probably what you thought. But you know, people have questions about that. I've had people ask questions, will there be a lot of people? How many people will be in heaven? And things like that. Maybe you thought about it, and maybe you've asked that question as well. And it's really a good question. But obviously in this verse, not everyone is going to enter into heaven. Will there be a lot of people? Well, it's kind of it's not a hard question to answer. But let's just say it like this. Compared to the people who won't be there, it'll be a small number. But will it be a big number? It will be a big number. Now, how do I know that? Because John, in the book of Revelation, had a vision, and in that vision, he saw a number of people in heaven. The number was so great they couldn't be counted. It was innumerable. In fact, they were people from every tribe and every tongue or language and every nation there. So there's going to be an enormous amount of people in heaven. But the question is here is that who's going to be going to heaven? Who are the ones that'll be in heaven? And I would just have to say this, and I believe this is a true statement, that no one will make it to heaven apart from God's grace. Now, God's grace, or the grace of God, is his unmerited favor. So think about it. No one goes to heaven apart from God's unmerited favor that he gives. He bestows favor that we don't deserve. How in the world is this grace ministered? How does God minister? Here's how he ministers it. He ministers it through his son, Jesus Christ. That's how the grace of God is given out. Now, may I just say this, that no one is going to make it according to that. What I mean is apart from God's grace. Now, you might ask this, we might say this, that none of us really deserve to go, do we? If we deserve to go, it wouldn't be by unmerited favor. In other words, if people deserve to go, then it would be based on someone's merit. And some people would deserve it, and some people wouldn't deserve it. And that kind of leaves us in a real quandary, because if that's the case, then they would actually earn heaven. And we know nobody earns or deserves heaven. So if that was the case, there wouldn't really be a need for a Savior to come. Does that make sense? And so, listen, all of us are in need of saving, and all of us are in need of a Savior. So apparently here in this verse, some are not really His. And I think that's what he's saying. So in reality, they don't really belong to Him. So let's go on and look at another couple of verses, and it'll go on and give us a little more information. So in Matthew chapter 7, verses 22 and 23, here's what he goes on to say. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? Now notice what Jesus said. And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Now Jesus' words here, they scare me. It's kind of a scary thing. And here's the reason. Because these that Jesus mentions, they seem to be real. And that's what's kind of a scary thing. And not only that, but did you notice that they said Lord, Lord. In other words, they called Jesus his Lord. Now what does that mean? Calling Jesus Lord means that Jesus is our boss, or he's our master, or that we are willing to follow him and obey him. So I think that that's interesting that they called him Lord, and not only that, but it says in this verse that they said that they had done many things in his name. What had they done in his name? Well, they had, they had cast out demons. They had prophesied. They had performed many wonders in his name. And so you just have to kind of scratch your head. This is kind of a strange thing to me. So it makes you wonder, were they lying? And they didn't really do those things in his name at all? I wonder. You know what? It's my opinion that they didn't really do those things at all. I don't think they were really his followers, because Jesus said, I never knew you, so they couldn't have at one time known him and not known him. So I don't think they were his followers at all. And at least in my opinion, honestly, I don't think they did those things. I think they said they did. Now, why is it that I believe that? Because Jesus says in this verse that what they did is that they practiced lawlessness. So in other words, they really weren't performing good works and good deeds and bearing good fruit. They were doing just the opposite. And that's why I think that they were only his followers in name only. Because in their heart and in reality, they were not. Now that's a pretty stern words from Jesus. Well, let's look at one more. Let me read one more thing to you before we close. If you remember that Jesus said said in words from his previous verses that I've read earlier, in another lesson, he said this, if you can remember this, a good tree cannot bear bad fruit. Remember that? Nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Therefore, this is what Jesus says, therefore by their fruits you will know them. And so anyway, I think this is, we've got to take Jesus' words. Some of them bring joy to us when we read them, and some of us say, it makes us go, oh my, this is so tough. But aren't you glad that Jesus just tells it like it is? Well, listen, that's all we have today. We appreciate you tuning in, and we hope that you'll join us next time, because next time will be the last one.